from WCIA 3 Plus. With Ethan Holesha and Tyler Hill, this is Midwest Mashup.
Welcome inside the WCIA studios here in Champaign, Illinois, and you heard the intro. This is Midwest Mashup, episode 4 today. My name is Tyler Hill, alongside Ethan Holesha here again in studio, the amazing studio that we have a chance to use. Thank you,
Absolutely.
WCIA. And as you saw, we're going to be talking sports. Midwest Mashup, again, if you don't know by now, is talking the pro sports in Chicago, 3 hours away, Indianapolis, 2 hours away, and then St. Louis, roughly 3 hours away as well. So we got a lot of good teams and a lot of professional sports to talk here. Super excited to keep going. Last week was just me. Ethan was on vacation, had a great time, but he is back and ready to get into it. First of all, Ethan, how was the vacation?
It was great, man. A lot of good family time in Michigan. My brother came in from Iowa. I don't get to see him too often, so to have all four of us together, it's a good time. Then went to Alabama for the first time in my life. Great weather, a lot of time on the beach, but it was good to have a break. But tomorrow's NFL season starts, and we're getting right into the swing of things here, so it's pretty awesome.
Pretty much the best time of the year, I think, in sports. This college football Saturday was insane. So many good games. Illinois obviously took care of business against Western, didn't figure out a lot about this team in that game, but they look good, and that's what you want to do against
them. And they covered. So.
Exactly. And that's what you want when you play a team like that. It's just take care of business, get the starters out, nobody gets hurt, which Illinois was able to accomplish. But we're talking NFL here. Like you said, we got the first games coming up here this Thursday, and we will be talking about the matchups. That's going to be the Colts versus the Dolphins and the Bears versus the Vikings. We're going to break down offense and defense of both teams and then give our score predictions before this 2 games. But before we get into that, we have some news. And before we get into that, I did the episode last week, like I said, solo, and that was a full season preview of both of these teams. So wanted to give Ethan here a shot to give his floor for these teams, the ceiling, and then ultimately the rec prediction, and then anything he's looking for going this season. So boom, Ethan, the floor is yours. Take it away.
I will take it now. Obviously, when you're talking floor and ceiling with these teams, we've seen the offseason, preseason, and we're gonna, get a quick sample size of this in week 1 here, maybe how the rest of the season will go. But with the Bears, I have their floor at 6-11. They have made so many improvements from last season. You look at the offseason, everything, I guess, in between. But I'm pretty sure our strength of schedule is second toughest in the entire league.
It's tough, and I went over it on that episode, but especially those first 5 games, you cannot come out of the gate slow because there's a lot of really good teams.
I mean, you have Ben Johnson. Caleb Williams is going to take a step up this year. That's my prediction. But if you're playing the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions twice a year, I mean, these are 3 arguably playoff teams even this year.
Of a division.
It's brutal. So I think if things don't go right fast, they could turn they could go south for the team. But I don't expect that to happen. I think that's the worst case scenario, 6 wins. On the flip side, I think the ceiling would be 11-6. I don't want to get my hopes up too much. There's probably going to be some games in there that are, maybe we shouldn't win or maybe games that we kind of let slip through the cracks. Especially, I feel like some of those away divisional games might be ones that just get away from us. But I don't know. The ceiling could be 13 wins. But realistically, I think the ceiling is right around that 11-12 win area. But my prediction for this year is 10 wins, and I think the Bears make it in the wild card as an appearance, but I don't think they actually win a game. I think they just make it to the playoffs with Ben Johnson and company.
What an improvement that would be from 5-12. You double your win total in the first year of Ben Johnson, and you have to think if that happens, Caleb looks good. The defense improved and held on from last year. Just so many things would have to go right for that to happen. So I think Bears fans, if you told them right now that they would get 10 wins this season, they would take it in a heartbeat.
I would take that because the last time the Bears were in the playoffs was 2020. Obviously, that game against the Saints didn't go too well. But the last time we really had a playoff-feeling team was that 2018 year where, the double doink happened. Whatever happened that year.
We'll just flush all that.
Yeah, we'll flush all that basically away. But moving on to the Colts, I have their floor at 5-12. Even if, the Daniel Jones experiment goes horribly wrong and you bring in Anthony Richardson and he doesn't take that step up, I think they're in a weak enough division where they could still, pull away a few wins there.
And the overall roster is still good enough to where I think they won't bottom out to 2 wins or 1 win.
Yeah, and having Pittman back healthy, they have a crowded wide receiver room, which, could help them out in some games. Tyler Warren's a guy that's going to come in and have an instant impact. I think they could steal a few games there. And then a ceiling, though, I think is 10-7. I wanted to say 9-8. I just don't see this team, if they stick with Daniel Jones, which I feel like is going to happen.
So all the coaches are saying is that he's a full-time starter.
And they're doubling and tripling down on the take of him being the starter going forward, and I just don't see the ceiling being that high. Even if they are 10-7, it just wouldn't even feel like a playoff team, even if they do sneak into that wild card or pull off the division somehow. But I have them at 7 wins, maybe third in the AFC South behind the Texans and the Jags, who I could even see taking a step up this year. Maybe Trevor Lawrence could figure it out a little bit more this year, and Brian Thomas is a great receiver. So
Travis Hunter coming in there, like
Travis
they
Hunter
have some
too.
Exciting new prospects to go along with Liam Cohen at coach. So I don't think it is a hard sell to say, hey, they could turn this around and be a way better team this year.
Yeah, I have them, like I said, third in the AFC South. I feel like the Titans will probably struggle to get things rolling at first with Cam Ward, but that's to be expected. But with Daniel Jones at the helm, I just don't expect this season to go too well for the Colts, unfortunately.
You seem to be in line with a lot of fans with that prediction. So I was there with you as well, pretty much within a win of both of those teams for their floor ceiling and their actual projections. So if you guys did tune into that, we appreciate it. That was a full episode, full 52 minutes of me talking. So hopefully now we'll have a little bit better of a flow for this one. Although it was a good time, and we're moving and flowing from the AFC South back to the NFC North because the Packers made a blockbuster trade, and that's them acquiring Micah Parsons, edge from the Cowboys, who's having a bunch of contract disputes, very public between his agent, Jerry Jones, himself. Obviously, he was not very happy, but I don't think anyone thought he was going to be traded until he was to the Packers for a 2026 first-round pick, a 2027 first-round pick, and then defensive tackle Kenny Clark. The reaction on social media when this trade went down was overwhelmingly negative. I couldn't find but one person. It was Bomani Jones was the only person that I could find who spun it a little bit positive in terms of the Cowboys. And even he was like, but also you handled this horribly, right?
And so, Jerry Jones.
Yeah, well, that's true. Jerry Jones'
Though we need to stop the run quote. It's like, what are we talking about? Yeah, maybe if this was 3 years ago with Kenny Clark, it's like, this guy is not really in his prime anymore. And a game changer like Micah Parsons, like, all those fans wanted them to figure something out to keep him in a Cowboys uniform.
And they just couldn't do it. And they also, Jerry, I don't know if you know this, but according to success rate, the Dallas Cowboys with Micah Parsons on the field were the #1 overall defense in the league. And without him, we're the 31st, which if you guys don't know how many teams there are in the NFL, that's second worst in the league. So he was so big for them. They're in a win now mode, right? Dak's older. CeeDee Lamb just got paid. I don't really understand why you would make this move to quote unquote reset when you're not in a position to reset on any other spot of the roster, right?
Yeah. It almost feels like Jerry was just trying to prove a point. Like he was going to die on this hill.
Yes.
Just if it's his way or no way, depending on what money Micah wants. And, his contract with Green Bay, it's the second most, or it's the highest non-quarterback contract in NFL history. And rightfully so. I mean, he's literally a blockbuster. This is a blockbuster trade, and he's a game-changing kind of player.
Really does just tilt the defense. And I think that's the other thing that I think about. We'll get into the details of the contract here. It's 4 years, $186 million. That's an average of about 46.5 per year. They structured it to where the first 2 years are a little less. Those are both under 27 million. And then those last 2 years, it jumps up to 60 million on the back two of the deal. But I love it because the cap goes up, right? And so it lessens that cap hit as the league continues to be more successful. Salary cap goes up, blah, 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 blah. But also, dude, even if they hit and get solid players, the Cowboys do with those first round picks, on defense, especially in the edge area, in the defensive line area, having a guy who's that level, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, is way more valuable than just having a bunch of solid players, right?
A bunch of starters.
Exactly. Yeah. You need a guy who is that game changer you're talking about where offenses have to plan their blocking schemes around completely. You're moving Parsons around. I mean, he was rushing from over center, over guard, out on the edge. And so it's just not a defensible trade for me in any aspect. I agree. Especially when you're the Cowboys. And, dude, you make enough money. You could have signed him for $47 million. Like, if we're being real, it was not a money thing. And so the one question coming out of this and how it applies and why we're talking about it is this does shake up the NFC North. The NFC North now has a top 10 player conservatively in the league, probably even top 5, I think most people would consider him, with the Packers. Does this shuffle the division for you at all?
I mean, I feel like it could. It's going to be interesting to see specifically for the Bears how this new O-line kind of holds up against a Micah Parsons guy. Is he going to maybe attack, the left side with Braxton Jones kind of winning this battle? I mean, he's definitely going to pick out weaknesses, but for Caleb especially, it's like this guy could easily hurt your quarterback. I mean, he's that good where it's like you have to game plan around him, and now facing the Packers is going to be that much harder. They were a team that was arguably already a playoff team, and this just makes them that much better. So,
and really, I think the one question I had for them was the defense, if they could replicate the success without Jair Alexander and a couple other guys. What makes it a lot easier on your corners? Having an amazing pass rush.
Yeah.
And so I think they did a really good job filling that hole, not by getting an amazing corner, but saying, hey, we're going to double down on the strength we have of the defensive line and get a lot of pass rush. For me, I had the division ranked Lions, Packers, Vikings, and Bears. And the Vikings and Bears, I think, were kind of interchangeable for me. I didn't really see a ton of separation between those two teams. But now I have it Packers, Lions, Vikings, Bears, in whatever order you want to put. I do think that this vaults them into the top of the NFC North. And I do think it puts them on par with the Eagles, too. And that's really scary, again, for the Bears, who are going to have to play the Packers twice coming into this season. So we're going to get out of here for a break real quick. We're going to have a couple more news, fun change of number for a guy that might be an X factor for the Bears this season, a couple of updates on people going in IR, and how good is Shane Steichen as a coach really? Can we put some context on maybe, okay, we haven't seen the best out of him, but is it really his fault? All that and more coming up next. Welcome back here on Midwest Mashup. We're doing some wrap-up of the news of the week, and this one is not super important when it comes to the actual X's and O's of football, but a big storyline this offseason, not big, but one that was thrown around on social media is Luther Bird's number. He chose 87, which is, in my opinion, kind of a gross number, I would say, right? It's not an ideal one that you would want. He was number 3 at Missouri, that single digit that looks pretty clean, but he recently was able to change it from 87 to 13, and that just jogged my memory of and thinking about, hey, what are some of my favorite receiver numbers? Because definitely not 87, but also not 13. And so I was going to just throw that out there as a prompt of, hey, for me, I think any single digit works, but I think there's some specific ones in there that look really good on receivers.
I think one number off, you go to 88, you think you're Des Bryant's, Michael Irvin's, and CeeDee Lamb currently.
Well, and even Randy Moss, with the Vikings at least. He was 81 with the Patriots, but there's a lot of good 88s there.
Jerry Rice was 80 too. There's many numbers in the 80s where it's like those are some of my favorite receiver numbers, and obviously you think of the players that are attached to them. But yeah, seeing 87 on Luther Burden was a little questionable. But like 13, Keenan Allen comes to mind. It's definitely a much better number, and that he was able to do so because I believe Tyler Scott was cut. I think that was his number before, but. Yeah, 13 looks a lot better on receiver than 87.
And we're just hoping it's not an omen for Kevin White. Am I right? Unfortunately,
oh my gosh,
not
man.
Bears legend Kevin White. A couple others I liked. I like number 1. I mean, we talk about any single digit, but Jamar Chase, when he comes out in that number 1 uniform, just looks so clean. Also, Bengals, sneaky good uniforms for the league. I really like theirs. The other couple, I guess, sleepers I had were 18.
Yep,
it's really,
AJ Green.
So it's AJ Green, but then Justin Jefferson, I think, rocks it really well for the Vikings, especially in those throwbacks they occasionally have. And then 8 was another random one that I just go, okay, I think it looks pretty good. Malik Neighbors currently it would be the top number 8, I think, in the league. So some good discussion there. Nothing too crazy before we get into some actual game previews. This one is big for the Bears, though, when it comes to actual teams. And that's going to be Austin Booker, who's missing the first 4 weeks at least because he's on injured reserve. So got hurt in the preseason. How do we think this actually will affect the pass rush as the Bears go up against some teams that have some really good passing games?
I think it will because I mean we kind of saw what he was able to do in the preseason.
And there it is, right there.
Yeah, he dominated in the limited amount of snaps. I believe he led all teams in sacks this preseason, or all players in sacks this preseason, and he only played in 2 games. So it's like he was poised for that breakout year. This is a big physical guy, and hopefully the injury isn't too long lasting because I really do think he could be an X factor on this defense.
Yeah, he's an edge and a body type that Dennis Allen likes, was playing really well. I know at least for the first week, and I believe the second week as well, he finished as the highest graded pass rusher according to PFF in all of preseason. So just to keep underscoring, he was having a great camp, a great preseason. Hopefully he can get back and contribute for this Bears team. For the Colts, most people would remember Anthony Richardson infamously tapping out of the Texans game last year, and he recently chatted with James Boyd of The Athletic, and he said that he shouldn't have tapped out of that October 2024 matchup. He said, yeah, I shouldn't have said that I was tired. I shouldn't have come out of the game, but you live and you learn, you grow from stuff like that. And for me, obviously that's a year ago. How much does it actually matter? But I think it shows his increased maturity and just growing up a little bit as a quarterback.
I think so too. If you're going to, even after all this time to reflect on the past, something that happened even a year ago, that can be hard to talk about. And some guys, if they let their ego get in the way, they're not going to even want to admit to that. So just showing that and seeing that Richardson, he's in a backup role now, and for him to be kind of vulnerable, I guess, about that, it does show maturity, and I agree with you. And if Richardson is, going to be the quarterback at some point this season or any time in the Colts' future, you want a guy that's going to take accountability for things that not only the fans but your fellow teammates or your coaches are going to call you out on. So
yeah, exactly. And I think this has been a humbling experience and something that makes me want to root for him even more. He just seems like a good dude, and obviously you don't really know. We're on the outside looking in.
Right.
We don't hang out with him on a consistent basis, although, Anthony, if you want to, we'd be down. But
yeah, we would totally be down, for sure.
Just from the outside looking in, it seems like he's a good guy and a guy that I would like to root for, and I would want to see him succeed in the NFL. Some guy that has already succeeded a little bit is Shane Steichen, play caller, called plays for the Eagles before coming over and coaching the Colts. And he was ranked in the Athletics. Ted Nguyen, he's a reporter for the Athletic. They surveyed 6 NFL defensive coordinators and defensive assistant coaches, and they ranked Steichen as number 10 in terms of the top play callers in the NFL. I think we've been pretty lockstep in that of saying, hey, he's a good coach, he's a good offensive mind, maybe just hasn't had the pieces yet.
Yeah, when you have Richardson, who's, obviously in his first couple years, he's still trying to find his footing, he's had his struggles, and then you throw a guy like Gardner Minshew in there, I mean, the ceiling's not going to be that high with what you can do. He was successful with the Eagles, like you've mentioned before. He led Justin Herbert to have one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen from a quarterback. So it's like the play calling is there. He just hasn't had the pieces, I guess, as of late to really showcase that.
Yeah, and hopefully he has a little bit more of that talent this year. We'll get into some of that when we preview the Colts. But right now we're previewing Vikings at Bears. It's going to be the Monday night game at 7:15 p.m. That is prime time. There are going to be a lot of eyeballs on Ben Johnson and company here in their first ever game. Just before we get into breaking it down from a matchup perspective, how are you feeling going into this matchup as a fan?
Man, it's just like, I'm just thinking my mental health is going to be relying on this game. It's the last game of the first week. This is huge. I mean, it's a divisional matchup. Monday night, like you said, it's on a national stage, and this would be, I don't know. Whichever way this goes, it's going to make huge headlines for all the wrong or for the right reasons. So I just really hope we see Caleb look fresh and for things to go smoothly.
Well, it sounds like you got a little more nerves than even the players.
Yeah.
You're just so nervous going into this. But there, like I said, there's a lot riding on it. There's been a lot of hype in the offseason.
The expectation, that's what the issue is.
They're really high, and you want to see a better year than last year, so totally understand that. And it is a tough first matchup, right? The Vikings are a very good team, went 13-4 last year with Sam Darnold at the helm. Now they got J.J. McCarthy, but we're going to start talking about the Bears' offense versus the Vikings' defense, which is we keep saying it, a very, very tough matchup. Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator, They blitz a ton, and it's a lot of simulated pressures where they still send 4 guys, but they walk people up like they're going to blitz 6, and you don't know where they're coming from. And some guys are dropping into zones, some guys are coming off the edge, coming right up the middle in your face. I mean, it's a tough defense to be able to decipher, especially for a young guy. They blitzed on almost 40% of their dropbacks last year. So 1 out of every 2 plays almost was a blitz that you have to deal with as the quarterback. Led to them getting 49 sacks, tied for 4th in the league last year. And what was the Bears' issue last year? Say it with me, Ethan. Sacks. So we'll start there. This new look O-line is getting a test early. Are they ready for it?
Man, it's so hard to tell. This is just such a big primetime game too. I want to say yes, but I mean, Brian Flores is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. He uses those disguised schemes. There's so many different looks that he shows the offense. But to have some veterans on the O-line, it does give me a sense of relief, I guess you could say. I just think the biggest thing, even more so than for the offensive line, is how Caleb handles the pressure. I don't like there were so many situations of him rolling out, kind of stepping out of the sack area, and then he jumps back in and he causes the sack. He was the most sacked quarterback by I believe it was 15 sacks last year, but I need Caleb to get rid of the ball. It's going to be a lot of quick reads, and the processing is going to be the biggest thing for Caleb. But I think with this O-line, he'll have more time in the pocket. And I think with Ben Johnson, they're working on speeding things up. So I think that it will give him some fits, but I do see some encouraging signs going into this week.
I do think you hit the nail on the head there, because you will never get a game where you don't get pressured at all. Right. And so eventually as a quarterback, you have to fight and you have to win and be able to handle pressure to keep the offense moving, keep them on track. The other aspect is, I think Ben Johnson has said many times that he wants to run the ball and he wants to make that a focal point of the offense. The Vikings had the third lowest success rate against their defense when it comes to running the ball. So it's tough to throw the ball against them, tough to run the ball against them. This is just overall a very good defense, and they added some talent. They brought in Jonathan Allen as a defensive tackle and a couple other guys on that defensive line. So they're retooling and just trying to shore up even some spots where they weren't great last year. Right. They got better while still holding serve in a lot of other spots too. The good news, I think, for the Bears, I was looking back at the games the Lions played against them last year, and they put up 31 points in both games and over 390 yards. So I don't think it's a fallacy to say, hey, Ben Johnson has Brian Flores' number just a little bit there.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, and this is a completely new look Bears team. Like you mentioned, though, the Vikings, they're coming off 13 wins. They did fill some of those holes on defense, and it's going to be a lot of new matchups. You're going to see new guys on offense for the Bears, new guys on defense for the Vikings. I don't know. It's just gonna, I think, working into like the first half, maybe after that first quarter, you're going to see kind of the flow of the game. I think Caleb just needs to have a good first drive. If the Bears score on their first drive, I'm going to feel good about things, but we'll see. I mean, it's two juggernauts in Johnson and Flores facing off against each other.
Great coordinator matchup, and we will hit more of that, our expectations for Caleb. Can the new left tackle, not new, but the newly named left tackle, hold up against this defense right after this break? Midwest Mashup rolling along here as we get into the first week of NFL football games on Thursday, games on Sunday, and then on Monday as well, which is what we're talking about right now. Vikings going to the Bears to play in Chicago on Monday night. Really important matchup for both teams, starting right out of the gate with a divisional game. That is never easy.
Nope.
But you want to make it as easy on your quarterback as possible. And I think Ben Johnson is going to have to maybe try and ease Caleb in the game here. Do you see it the same way, or are they going to be chucking it deep and just try and let the offense be as explosive as fans would like it to be?
I think my bold prediction is that they let Caleb sling it on the first drive, kind of maybe test the waters a little bit. I think maybe if a drive or two kind of, maybe end in one or two sets of downs, then they kind of bring the running game more into it. I really think Ben wants to prove that, he could bring the best out of Caleb and not limit, I guess, what made Caleb Williams the number one overall pick last year. I just think it really depends on the success of those first couple of drives. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see where like a Kyle Monangai fits into the running game. We have three solid running backs going into week one, but I don't know. I think it depends, but I think if Caleb struggles on the first couple of drives, then they'll kind of try and ease him more into the game. I'm interested to see where you kind of stand on that.
Yeah, I think they do just ease him in a little bit, especially because of the nature, like we talked about, of the Brian Flores defense, where they are throwing so much at you. They're rotating coverages. There's two safeties up top, and then boom, the snap happens, and boom, one's coming down. You don't know what coverage it is, and now you have six guys blitzing. Like, you just don't know.
Right.
What's going on a lot of the times. And so I think they try to at least early lean on that run game, maybe get, have the defense declare, hey, we're bringing another guy into the box to stop the run, and then run some play action off of that. But I don't think you can completely take the pressure off, because he's the number one pick. And if you're going to have to ease him into every game, no matter who it is, that's not what you drafted, right? And so there has to be, I think, a balance where, maybe that first drive, that scripted drive, hey, we're going to try and get him some easy completions, some nice stuff. Even we saw in the first drive of the Bills preseason game where it's, hey, Loveland's coming over on a slice, it's just dumping the flat and it's 10 yards. Some of that, and then, hey, we're going to have to ramp it up as the game goes along, because you can't beat a team like the Vikings, a team as good as the Vikings, just dinking and dunking everywhere.
No, I think that's fair. And I definitely see where you're coming from. I could totally see that being the case, where they're just kind of trying to ease him into things. There's a lot of new here for Caleb. I mean, he's looking going into this season, it looks completely different than it did last year. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts and definitely some learning curve and bumps along the way. So I think that easing Caleb into the game would probably be the right play. But it's going to be interesting to see that first drive, the first couple drives, week 1 at Monday night, and it's. I think Bears fans are on the edge of their seat for
they want him to play well
to come.
so bad,
yeah,
so bad.
And I'm one of those people.
Yeah,
so.
and that's what I'm looking for in terms of him playing good is that decisiveness, the efficiency, and go, hey, are you just making quick, good decisions, back foot hits the ground in your drop, and you're letting it rip? He did that very well in the couple preseason games that he did play. But now the lights are on. You're on Monday Night Football. This is the most pressure that you can have for a week 1 game in all of the NFL. All eyes 100%. Are on you. So can you take all that off of your shoulders and just let it rip? And, maybe you won't have these amazing stats. You're not throwing for 300 yards. But if he can just be efficient, decisive, have his eyes in the right spot, and know what he's seeing and know what he's doing, I would take that as encouragement, even if the stats maybe don't back that up. But I think if he does that, stats are downstream of that. That's just playing good quarterback.
100%. All that I think Bears fans are asking is that Caleb puts us in a position to win the game. There's only so much that he's going to be asked to do. A lot of it's going to rest on the defense too. But if Caleb plays a clean game, a smart game, efficient, I think those are some of the most important things. It's going to be spreading the ball out to some of these new weapons,
right.
Things like that. Even hitting your check down passes. Just smart football plays where you're not putting yourself in positions to make unnecessary mistakes.
Right, and part of that's going to be the offensive line. Again, a retooled offensive line, but a player that is coming back is Braxton Jones, who was named the left tackle. He was the starter last year, but was in a competition with a couple guys, Ozzie Trapilo, Kieran Amagaji. I think they were just seeing what they had, right? They knew Braxton Jones was an average to above average player at that spot. But just say, hey, could we get a guy who's a little bit better, especially in pass protection? But they ended up naming him the starter. Do you feel good about him coming back and being the starter, or is this a guy you really were hoping the Bears would replace?
It's hard to tell because when you bring in, a rookie and, he's kind of fighting for that spot, it's not encouraging to hear that Braxton Jones isn't, I guess from the beginning of preseason, like this is his job. Ben Johnson, he came out the other day and just said he knows what he's doing. I don't know. Braxton Jones, he can be solid when he's healthy, but the health has been a big thing for him. And that foot injury was obviously not good. And I think if he can stay on the field, he's fine. He's definitely maybe the weakest link on this offensive line now, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. And, if things go south, we do have other options, but I don't know. I wish we would have gone out. The Bears already plugged a lot of holes on the O-line, but like wishful thinking, we would have addressed the left tackle a bit more too, but this is okay.
Yeah. And I think you hit it where offensive line is a weak link position, excuse me, where it doesn't matter if you have 3 really, really good guys, they're going to attack the 2 bad guys you have. And so with Braxton Jones being an average left tackle, if that's your weak link, I think you're doing pretty well when it comes to your offensive line. So while I agree that he's not the ideal guy you would want there, and I was kind of even thinking that Trapilo would take that spot through camp because of his pass blocking, I don't mind that he's back in that left tackle position for the Bears. We're getting to X factors here, Ethan. Who do you think, and this could be a player, this could be a position group, or just something in the scheme that Ben Johnson's bringing in? What are you looking for if the Bears do this, they're going to have a really good chance to win?
Get Colston Loveland involved early.
Dude, I was thinking the same thing.
That's what I think. These 2 tight end sets, the Vikings are going to try and confuse the Bears with all their schemes and Brian Flores. I think if we get Loveland involved early and keep Kmet in the mix of things, those 2 tight end sets are going to give the Vikings defense fits. And if Caleb and Loveland can connect early and often in this game, I just think the sky's the limit for the Bears offense, I guess, for the rest of the game.
And you took him in the first round, Colston Loveland. Use him. He showed a lot of talent at Michigan in that preseason. You can do a lot of different things with him.
Awesome.
And I do think if there's a weakness on this Vikings defense, it is at that safety and corner position. Harrison Smith has been a very, very good player. He's very old. Josh Metellus does a lot for them in a lot of different spots, but coverage is not what I would say his strong suit, and then corner is just an overall weakness for them. So I think this is a game where you can leverage the Colston Loveland matchup, where he's too big for a lot of those guys in the safety or in the defensive back room, but is going to be too fast for any of the linebackers that the Vikings have. Mine is going to be staying out of 3rd and long, and that can come from anything. We talked about those dump-off passes to Loveland, check down stuff that they showed in the Bills game, or it can be running the ball. But, man, with the way Flores plays defense, how confusing it can be, it only gets all the more confusing if you're in 3rd and 8 and you have to throw the ball. They know you have to throw the ball. And so they get to just tee off on you in the pocket. If you can stay out of those situations, keep it 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, and work, and you can still throw it then, right? But it's just a lot more manageable and you can handle it a lot better. That's going to be the key that I'm looking at for the Bears.
100%. And I see where you're coming from. It's those, 3rd and longs where Caleb might try and play hero ball and throw an unnecessary pick, or we could even a 10-yard loss for no reason. Just something along those lines where it's like, we're keeping it 3rd and manageable. We're keeping it, everything's moving forward, not too many negative plays. I think that's going to be huge for the offense.
Yeah, and so we will be looking at those two things, one player in Colston Loveland, and then overall the scheme, making sure that we can hit some nice plays early and often to stay out of those 3rd and 6 plus. Coming back, we're going to talk about the Vikings offense with a new quarterback at the helm going up against a new defense in the Bears that has a new defensive coordinator at the helm. A lot of new in this matchup, and we'll hit it all coming right back. Welcome back into what is kind of a new show for us here, Midwest Mashup, episode 4. My name's Tyler Hill, hosting alongside Ethan Halesha on Cam 2. You'll see him right here. Boom. Cam 2
What's
for
up?
Ethan.
What's up?
Across the desk, a little behind the scenes look there. But we talked about it. There's a lot of new for the Bears on defense. Dennis Allen coming in at defensive coordinator with this new coaching staff. And then J.J. McCarthy, the first-round pick from the 2024 draft out of Michigan for the Minnesota Vikings, is getting his chance to start at quarterback. So this is a little bit tougher to preview just because we don't know a lot about JJ in particular. Obviously, he played at Michigan but hurt his knee last preseason, so he didn't get a chance to play at all for the Vikings last year with Sam Darnold show, and then he is in Seattle now. But when we look at JJ's first start, I think it's always a question of, hey, how do you attack a young quarterback, right? Do you be really aggressive, try and get him fired up with pressure and with press corners, and we're trying to take everything away and make it as hard as possible, but we might give up a big play that's just kind of easy and get his confidence up? Or do we play a little softer, make him make a mistake, but maybe he gets in rhythm by hitting some short passes, right? That's the give and take you have. When you look at this matchup, which one would you lean to?
I was personally leaning towards overwhelming him with pressure.
Yes.
I
totally agree.
Force the quick reads, speed up the game for JJ. This is his first game. It's his first test in the league. So many guys have said the step between college and pros, there's a huge speed difference at basically every position. Having a guy like Austin Booker would be so awesome.
It would be nice.
It would be so sick to just put that pressure on the young quarterback, but you still have guys like Sweat and Odangbo who I think you should just send and really press coverage on the receivers. McCarthy, it's going to take him a little to find his footing, and I think that could be a big reason of even why the Bears might win this game.
Especially on the road, because we just saw it in college football, and now granted NFL atmospheres are not quite as good as college football atmospheres in terms of the noise, just the overall effect it has on people. But first start on the road, we saw Arch Manning struggle. We saw Julian Sayin in that Ohio State game also struggle in his first start. I'm trying to think. Ty Simpson in his first start for Florida State, right? Going to Tallahassee. Like, being away when you're trying to be comfortable in a situation you're already uncomfortable in, and it gets that much harder when you have the crowd noise. You're in a different hotel. Like, all these different things start to compound. And so because of that, I would really want to heat him up early to not let him get in that comfort zone, to not let Kevin O'Connell, one of the best play callers, if not the best play caller in the NFL, get in a rhythm of feeling out where JJ is. I just want them to be disrupted at all points. Also, what you worry about is getting burned on the back end, right? If we're pressing corners or if we're being really aggressive and sending pressure, are we going to get bombed over the top? Jordan Addison is suspended for this game. And so they do still have Justin Jefferson. Obviously, he is one of, if not the best receivers in the game.
Right.
But you don't have to be as worried about the weapons they have if you're able to bracket Justin Jefferson. There's not equally as good, but a really, really good number 2 option on the other side in Addison.
Yeah, no, that's true. And now, you have to worry about Adam Thielen, who's past his prime. Jalen Naylor gets bumped up, but he's still kind of unproven in the NFL. Addison out, that's huge for the Bears, honestly. And with, a guy like Jalen Jones probably not playing this game. That's huge as well. And for Addison to be out, I think that it makes it that much easier for the Bears.
Yes, because this normally would not be the game you want your DB to be hurt in, right? They have, I would say, the best or second best behind T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in Cincinnati. but I have them as the second best two receiver,
I think that's
like two-headed
fair.
monster in the league, right? You take one head off, it gets a little bit easier, and now Nashawn Wright has to step up. He has been the guy in camp. He's had a really good camp.
But he's not
great-
Jalen Johnson.
And he's not Jalen Johnson, and he didn't have a good preseason game. I had the stat last week that in their most recent preseason game, he graded out as the worst corner according to PFF against the Chiefs in all of preseason. He had that one Tyquan Thornton bomb that they hit over the top, and then just struggled a little bit with tackling, getting off blocks as well in some of the screen game the Chiefs were doing. He's got to be able to step up. He also played for the Vikings. I was doing some research on him. He played on their practice squad last year, and so he said he's hyped to go up against Justin Jefferson and these guys that he did in practice a ton. And so can you take a little bit of that insider knowledge and use it here in the game? I think that's something that is going to be big because, like we said, we're just not sure Jalen Johnson with that groin injury. He's trying to play in this week 1 game, but we have no clue whether he actually will be able to.
And when you're out for months and you haven't done anything in training camp, anything in preseason, I just feel like, I think it would be a miracle if he's going to suit up week 1. But like you touched on, having Addison out, that I feel like that kind of offsets that a little bit. You have a guy like Jaquan Brisker who's back after missing most of last season. He's a huge physical play style guy. Tyreek Stevenson's,
I'm looking for him to take a big step. Yeah,
I do like him, and when you say the name, everyone thinks of the Fail Mary that happened last year, but it's like he is actually a solid player, and his teammates have been boasting about him all preseason. We have a debut for veteran Kevin Byard on this Bears defense. Can we lock up Justin Jefferson? Are we gonna play tight man coverage? It's gonna be a new look under Dennis Allen and some of these, new pieces that are either coming back from injury or that we picked up in free agency. So it's going to be interesting. Justin Jefferson, he's going to get his, basically.
You're never going to fully stop him.
Right. And just containing him enough and without having a guy like Addison there, I think if we can contain Justin Jefferson, it's going to give us a good chance to win the game.
Totally agree. The other thing that we're looking at here, or at least I'm looking at, is the line of scrimmage, because the Vikings have a lot of new on that line of scrimmage as well. They brought in the most new guys. When you look at the Bears and the Vikings on that O-line, they brought in Will Fries and another guy from the Colts, actually. We'll talk about you Colts are coming up here just after we break down this game. And then drafted Donovan Jackson, the offensive tackle, who they kicked down to offensive guard at Ohio State. So when we're looking at the new look O-line for the Vikings against a new look D-line for the Bears, right? They are bringing back Sweat, Gervon Dexter, but they bring in Grady Jarrett, Odengbo. There's some new look guys there. Who do you think has the advantage?
I think it's kind of even. I mean, it seems to me that those are kind of two offsetting things. I mean, you bring in the new with the Vikings and the new with the Bears. It's going to be interesting to see, kind of what the matchup advantages are. I guess we'll get a good idea of that during the game. But I think those two things are fairly offsetting. I do like Odengbo a lot. I think he's going to take a big step this year. From what I've heard in camp and preseason, he looked and sounded good. But the Vikings are bolstering their O-line. It's going to be interesting to see how they could get Aaron Jones going against the Bears D-line. But
bringing in Jordan Mason as well too to back him up.
Yeah. So that's a nice 1-2 punch there. But if the Bears can really plug up the holes with Sweat and guys like Odengbo.
And that's what we're seeing right now, and that's why I'm replaying these highlights, is because that was Will Fries, and the other offensive lineman, his name escapes me. I'm sorry about that, because you are an NFL player and you deserve to be known. But just we have a lot of guys that we remember here.
Right.
And the Bears D-line looked very good against them in that Colts game last year. And so that's why I give a slight lean to the Bears. I don't think it's a massive advantage, but I think they can win more matchups than they lose, maybe a 60-40 split when it comes to their D-line versus the O-line. Real quick here, X factors. Mine is going to be the secondary. Because of the Jalen Johnson question mark, you're going to have to stop the run, because why'd they retool this O-line? So that they can run the ball and help J.J. McCarthy. You got to do that first, and probably to do that, you're going to have to leave those corners on islands. We talked about, we think that is the smart thing to do. Stop the run, bring some pressure, make J.J. beat you in those high-leverage situations. To do that, Tyreek Stevenson, Nashawn Wright, these guys have to hold up on the outside, which I think they can do. These are talented guys, and two players that can take a big step coming into this year.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Stevenson was a guy that was an X factor for me. We just talked about it. I expect him to take a step up this year. Super talented guy. And Jaquan Brisker is a guy that's coming back, and I think people are really sleeping on him. I love his style of play. He's a great player. Very active on Twitter, which I love. He gets the fans fired up. Sometimes he talks about, I guess things that he shouldn't really be talking about. But, he's a wear your heart on your sleeve kind of guy, and I
that's
think
what you want on defense. Yeah,
and that fits Dennis Allen's mold. It's perfect. So yeah, those DBs. I mean, it's going to be huge to see what they can do against a short-handed receiver room for the Vikings week 1.
Yeah, and we got about 2 minutes here. We're going to score predictions. So I have the Bears taking this 24-17. I'm taking a lesson from this weekend in college football, and I know it's not always translatable to the NFL, but you got a new quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, a new system for the Bears with 2 very good defenses. And so I think even early in the year for any team, basically, the defense is ahead of the offense. And so I think that's what takes root here, and the Bears are able to pull it out 24-17 and a bit of a low-scoring one in Chicago. Do you have your score prediction?
I'm not far off. I said Bears 27-24. I don't know why. Just there's so many times last year where Caleb had like that hero moment in the last drive of the game. I kind of see that happening. Maybe Bears kick a last-second field goal and they win, but I think this is going to be a back-and-forth game. There's so much new on both sides of the ball for both of these teams.
It really is tough to analyze and predict because of that, right? New quarterback for the Vikings might as well be a new quarterback for the Bears as well, just with a new system. There's everything. So much that you have to kind of assume a little bit about.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and I expect Caleb to have a slightly above average game, but who's to say what's going to happen? I think either way this goes, it's going to be a one-score game no matter who wins this game.
Yeah, I think it will be tight for sure, and we'll get some more data points as the season goes along, be able to stick our teeth into some more solid analysis, but really excited to start the season. We always are. And that's not the only game we'll be talking about today because the Colts, we are with you, Indy. You're going to be playing the Miami Dolphins. Do the secondary injuries just render the game null? Can you overcome that? What will Daniel Jones look like in his first start for the Colts? We'll hit all of that and more coming up after this. We're here for our final segment of Midwest Mashup. Again, I'm Tyler Hill. Joining me is Ethan Halesha across the desk, giving you all the analysis for pro sports in Chicago, Indianapolis, and St. Louis. So we realized this is our 4th episode. We're still getting used to the timing of it. We only have one segment to hit the Colts. So what we've already said, Colts fans, we're really sorry that we didn't give you the same amount of time, but we're going to flip it. So next week, we will have the Colts as the first game that we will look back on this game against the Dolphins, analyze it, and then look forward to the next game. They will be up first just in case we do this again. But we are going to get everything in. It will just be a little bit quicker maybe than we did with the news and with the Bears. So we're going to get right into it. The depth chart came out for the Colts, and the biggest glaring thing, at least for me, was Xavier Howard being listed as the starting corner. He is the guy who they signed off the street. He didn't play last year in the NFL. He was a Pro Bowler in 2020, so has some pedigree, but just was not playing up to that standard by the time he left the league. And he's the starting corner against the Miami Dolphins. Will this secondary be able to hold up against Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and the explosiveness of the Miami offense?
I really don't think so, unfortunately. Xavier Howard has been out of football for a year and a half. I mean, he's been with the team for 2 weeks, and it's like, hey, go guard Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I mean,
2 guys with track speed.
That's a tough ask, and, he's going to be opposite Charvarius Ward, who's a very solid player. Cameron Bynum's a guy who I think could be an X factor in this game too, but having a guy that hasn't played since 2023, it's tough. They've been decimated with injuries, but they're in a bad situation. But that's just not really what you want to roll out there week 1.
And it's another weak link position. We talk about offensive line is that, right? Where if you have one really bad offensive lineman, it wrecks the whole unit. So the secondary is like that too, where if they can pick on one guy, you can have all pros at every other position. Not actually, that's a little bit of an exaggeration.
Right.
But if you have a complete zero there, that's going to wreck your defense, right? And so I'm not confident Xavier Howard's going to be able to take care of business against a top 10 receiver in the league in Tyreek Hill, and then one of the best second options in the league, and then a healthy Tua. Normally, last year wouldn't have been too big of an issue because Tua wasn't playing. They were a worse offense, but I feel like Mike McDaniel's had this whole offseason. He's going to dial some stuff up and make it really, really hard in this Colts secondary.
Yeah, and how aggressive is he going to be not being in the game for so long? I mean, even in some run schemes, run plays, they might target his side of the field. It just depends on, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if he's really up to game speed at this point. I mean, if he's listed as a starter, you would assume so, but yeah. He's definitely, he's going to have a target on his back, and they're definitely going to single him out. Even though, I mean, you're an all-pro guy 5 years ago now, that is, though, which is crazy to think that 2020 was that long ago.
Right.
But, he's listed as a starter, so hopefully he proves us wrong, but I just don't see this going too well for the Colts.
And the good news is they do have a lot of good other secondary pieces. Kenny Moore, Travarius Ward, you talked about a lot of those. Cam Bynum as well. And I do trust Lou Anarumo as a DC, so if anybody's going to be able to work around it, I think it's him. It's tough when he wasn't playing football like 4 weeks ago, right? And so that's just a lot to ask. But I do think other people on the defense can make up for it. And the one that I'm looking at is Laiatu Latu. He is the first-round pick out of UCLA, a guy on the edge that had a fine rookie campaign, was not, outstanding, amazing or anything, but 5.5 sacks. And I think he can really take a jump this year, and they need him to take a jump because we talked about it with Green Bay bringing in Micah Parsons. What do you do if your secondary is maybe a little iffy? You got to get to the passer. And I think he's poised to take a big step in year 2 to help them do that.
I think so too, and he's my other X factor on defense. Honestly, we seem to be agreeing on everything. I think he could get up to that 10 sack kind of year, maybe take that step
and
up.
How
like
big
you're
would
saying.
that be for the Colts defense?
It would be huge because they lost Odangbo to the Bears,
yes.
and that's a 7 sack guy a year kind of guy, and you have Franklin obviously and other guys, but for a guy like Latu to step up, I mean that would just be huge for the defense.
Right. I mean, again, you spent a first-round pick on him. That's some premium draft capital, and he was the top-ranked edge rusher coming into the draft for most people. So I think he is poised to take a step. He was always really, really good technically. That's what stood out at UCLA, where he wasn't some overwhelming athlete, but man, the way he used his hands, his pass rush plan was great. So I think now that he's used to game speed and getting up to par there, he can start pulling out what he's so good at, using those counter moves and things like that, because I don't think the rest of the D-line's a question mark, right? DeForest Buckner is going to do what he's going to do. That's an all-pro level player. You can
100%.
bank on him being good. But if you can get a guy on the edge to add to that, I think it is just exponential for this defense and helping what they can do, because the Dolphins' O-line's a question mark, man. It hasn't been good for the past few years, and they had Teron Armstead retire, who came out on his podcast. We talked about with maybe not being so high on Caleb Williams, but he's gone. That's another Pro Bowl, all-pro level player that's not playing at left tackle for the Dolphins. So this is something I think the Colts can take advantage of. Okay, we have a mismatch in the secondary. Our D-line's going to need to ball out.
Yeah, 100%. And if they can really, I guess, stop A-Chain, who we don't really know how healthy he is coming into week 1 here.
That's true. It was an ankle injury, I think,
believe
or it was some
so.
type of leg injury, yeah.
Yeah, because he's still listed as questionable. So, if he's not 100% and maybe they don't rely on him a whole lot, I mean, that could be huge too for the D-line to step up and really stuff the run, get their confidence up, and, take advantage of a Dolphins O-line, which is, definitely not – they're one of the – I wouldn't say – I don't know if it's fair to say they're one of the worst in the league, but they're definitely in that bottom half.
And some stats for you now as we move on to the offense. Colts offense here going up against the Dolphins defense. Daniel Jones is making his first start. I do think this matchup meshes well for him, though, because I was looking at Miami. They allowed the lowest average depth of target. So that's where, like, how far you're throwing it past the line of scrimmage in the NFL at 6.4 yards. And that's going to be what Daniel Jones is, right? That's a lot of short throws. And so if Miami's willing to give those up, I do think that plays right into the Colts' hands. And if they can get that in the run game going, they have a chance to put up some points here.
Yeah, I think to find success, I mean, they're going to have a run-heavy offense that goes through Jonathan Taylor, but you're going to see a lot of shorter check-down passes from Daniel Jones. I think the X factor, though, on the offense is Tyler Warren. Use this guy all over the field. I mean, he's going to be a mismatch nightmare.
Here he comes right now in the highlights, I believe.
For any team, pretty much. There he is. Yeah, he's a stud. He's definitely one of those game-changer kind of guys. They could use maybe some 2 tight end sets with Warren and Mo Alley Cox just to...
And they did do a little bit of that in preseason as well.
Just to switch things up. A guy like A.D. Mitchell, we still don't know because there's so many inconsistencies again in preseason.
But
with
man, the practice clips
getting
looked awesome.
separation, the joint practice clips. Yeah, he looked awesome. But yeah, I mean, if they can get the run game going, which they can do with a healthy Jonathan Taylor, and if Daniel Jones is just Daniel Jones, I think that could be enough to still win this game.
Yeah, because really when you look at the Dolphins defense, we talked about the question marks in the Colts secondary. I have the same and honestly worse question marks about Miami's secondary. And that's why I'm looking at this wide receiver, really just a pass catcher group, because I do want to throw Warren in that. Of somebody standing out, you hit Warren, I think he'll be the number 1 option for this offense. But I do think Michael Pittman Jr. is going to come back strong, right? We talked about it in a previous episode, but he had a fractured back last year, played through it. So
Which is crazy.
I mean, just unreal that he is tough enough to do that. Yeah. Shout out you. But obviously it's going to limit what you can do, and he had his worst season since he's become a full-time starter with the Colts. But last year, even when Flacco played and he was still injured, he had 3 games over 70 yards, and 2 of those over 100 yards in the 6 games that Flacco played. And so when they focused the offense around more of that short intermediate passing game without Anthony Richardson, he shined. And so I think that's what they're going to want to do with Daniel Jones. And so he'll be a big part of that.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. It seems like Michael Pittman, where he really thrives is what Daniel Jones kind of play type is kind of spotlight for him there. And I think maintaining time of possession is going to be huge, keeping that defense off the field.
That's my X factor is the run game. They are going to have to be able to run the ball in this game.
100%. Yeah. If you get Taylor going early and often, even, some of your backups in there and Goodson and Giddens, just really having the offense run through that and just switching the pace between running and even passing the ball, some shorter receptions, that's going to be the key to victory for the Colts this week.
Because especially if you're not going to get explosive plays, in the pass game, it'd be nice to get it in the run game, and Jonathan Taylor has done that throughout his whole career, right? He's taken runs for 80-plus yards, right? He is that kind of dude in the running back. So real quick, we got score prediction here as we have about 2 or 3 minutes left, 2 minutes exactly in our show. I have 28-17 Colts. I think that the Dolphins are just not going to be a very good team this year. And while I do think they have that advantage outside with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and some of those guys against the corners, I think they're probably worse pretty much everywhere else. And so because of that, I tend to lean Colts.
That's fair. And initially I'm saying 23-17 Dolphins. I think that guys like Waddle and especially Hill might burn the secondary on a couple of plays, but I could see the Colts winning this game. If Daniel Jones gets into the rhythm of things with some of these receivers and Jonathan Taylor gets going, I could easily see the Colts winning this game. But like the first game, I do think this is going to be a one-possession game.
Yeah, I do think it's a tight one, and really just with week one, you don't know a lot of what's coming in, and teams kind of, I feel like, feel each other out, right? They're, you have your scripted plays, and you're trying to see, hey, what's new with either team, and so you don't get off to those hot starts, maybe like some other games. We're going to do a quick baseball wrap-up here. Chicago Cubs are the best team of our three here between Chicago, St. Louis, and Indianapolis. Right now, they're 80-59, 5 games back of the Brewers in the NL Central. Then we're just going to scroll down here and look at the Chicago White Sox, who are last in the AL Central. They're 51-88, 28.5 games back of the Detroit Tigers, but have some nice bright spots. We've talked about Acosta Montgomery especially.
Second
really
most
well.
homers in the league since July 22nd, only trails Kyle Schwarber, which is crazy.
And that is the type of stuff you want to see, that potential when the season, you're very much not making the playoffs if you're the White Sox, and so you really do want to see that kind of potential on the back end here. And then I scroll back up as I find the Cardinals here in the NL Central. They are 69-71, 16.5 games back of the Brewers in that division. We've talked about it since we've had this show, but they're just kind of sitting in no man's land right now, and it's tough to talk about them because of that. They're not making a push for October, but also haven't been tanking quite like the White Sox.
It's a place that no organization wants to be in, and it'll be their third straight year missing the playoffs, which is crazy for the Cardinals. So,
I mean, just a team, when we were growing up, that was the model organization, right? I mean, it was
100%.
the Redbirds, it was the Cardinal way. They were very good and always outplayed their talent, but unfortunately just have fallen on some tough times. That's going to wrap it up for our show.
Yeah.
So we flew back on the end. There's just so much to talk about, though, and you'd rather have that than not a lot to talk about.
And if the Cubs do make the playoffs, we'll be talking about them in October. So.
Exactly. That's what the other thing that's right is baseball people, you're just in the grind right now. And so when it gets to October playoff time, we are going to go full in on that. But football season is here. That is what people are focusing on more than anything. That's what we're focusing on more than anything. So we're excited to watch these games. And then next week we will do kind of a tandem thing where we'll have games to look back on and analyze what happened. And then we'll also look forward to next week's games. Again, Colts fans, we will hit you first just in case we go over on those first game times because there's just so much to hit. So, Ethan, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you, Tyler.
Again, I am Tyler Hill. He is Ethan Halesha. Thank you guys for tuning in and have a great rest of your day.